현재 진보도는 님미장 zon은 모놈 진보는 감자다 바거다는 감산도 절말도 또 제장라 기숑자는 저로 되는 게 감선 저거 특집전로 일라면 지금 번조자라 소란 공기 도방 버려 신기로 공기 도방 버려 신기로 공기 도방 버려 신기로.
Profound and subtle Dharma is rarely encountered in eons. Now we can hear and follow it. May we realize the Tathagata's meaning. To liberate all the sentient beings, please give rise to the unsurpassed and supreme bodhicitta.
Dharma nyangchi ndashkut kwapsartu dharma sarnyang zimchirtu fkarwa shirnid jutman zadam tongtu chandam shina Lhami hurmit panbaran yir Lhama hurmit Magam vamo lhaflar nam leki ngan song tongjer yang jewa chelar kya song na tsen per digchip tagbaran yir Vipa pamag nyin tor nir nam shi karki ma shi pa pan mangchang nir nam Nin nir nam chechir ngoyang ma shi na jewa chenbu kagzigla tape tajang takpshang tsar Vdan chak sim jagam tsan vjot na shangchib sen hui kum tayir nang ni nyang ni nin nin nyang ni 到时候把这些改一下啊，最后的版本。俺送结讲对来他儿，同米sem kit mator na fshewor fshewjig longtan top lamet fshangchib jimdo pe kamsum korwi dungar le. Jori nyarje semki ne sarnyar kigzik fshewki na rendo tamchid nirnjib chang leki vjiba leki vjible xtanda jor. Ganjig mdor de xlogba yi marig semchin jurndot pe. Samgi mekyep tamje kyang mdor de flagji nirjit kir. Te leki vjibe te tagchin mdor de nzinma ni. Me togr pudang vzaptong dang tseche kuki sarnyam chodo. Chikzang sarnyam dunvjig te nyamtsum chiki tongshi na. Sem kede zhi nga ringar pong zhang. Sem kede zhi nga ringar pong zhang. Xiachang do log zintsik dang chukchud danchak zhigsim pong. Sim zhig pong. Sekchig sem kuyim san bjod nar milim tayi rkim tong zhang. Sadne wangbo norin gir. Te nem dorde tubar nam tserang chirtong bjidmin gir. Tserib chirtong bjidmin gir. Gangzak di na senhwa yi sam kepa shirib tub semchin gurbu nat Shung dang kim gji nyamrgit kurnam tur rmanam tamchid mabde dang dopa vjind mandrape sarnyar kala ki tad na mandut ganjang jevaran jar malam tamchid devar zeku pusum tsok zeku pansok layi zhong gangjik nagra chimso dang marong tikjen xchangzin mu njigdun longnak tak tarkabi nes jigbar dopai sarnyang senhui ko azgla tajang chigmchud shigir na ridang nagtsar jamso jigba tamchid jevarin ger xiangzig dakka tsgla son sarnyang yondam samme ke kara chirtong warta yang kiwi nimto jontab jar kiwi nimto jontab jar ganjig sarnyam santu ne kigzig jarjang chigshide me togr puku zaptong sok gyartong chope dela fshod fshangchim chogdo ngushina tartig sangi tienchinde tina fshangzig kyonkin tsar fshirni de janglab jopar fsha sai nyang sai molum gim dole tongtu ji panyun tambi legerte pchirni pago Dice san jomden deji pombak sir kim dokchan te kyang ne shlariam shanchu sanwa chimbo sai nyambu shur jagte ndar tar ndarkat ka tsarpa sai nyambo kyoki zimchir ji tobna samgi me kyoki shamba da nyangji Kyoki Shamba dan Nyangje Samji Mechib, Kyoki Shirb Samji Mechib, Kyoki Pubab Samji Mechib, Chokji Sanji Tamchiji, Kyoki Samji Mechibi, Zapi, Garwa, Chag, Tom Chag, Namsa, Ngabra, Zatyang, Team Tana, Zapa, Mamchi So, Sai Nyambo, Tandar, Daka Samchi Samji, Lai Nene. Gyarton Shia Chagji, Jot Mepi, Sanji, and Shansi Sawa, Namdan, Haller Devil La Sobin, Droar Namji, Jarne, Larian Kansam Kura, Mei, Urtavirni, Pi, Hadan, Min, Droar Namji, Chet, Chun de Cholak, Tapar Shago, Chokin, Droan, Data, Nyanok Chigdan, Jak Chig the young Anson Gones, Stone the Magic Na, Kara, Gyarton, Chakshia, Chaggi, Varta, Tara, Mamchibi. Sammi parni nyarada nar mepi nyarwa namsir tonda magjik banar mu magoso sai nyambo zawang semchin dadagna shirgit mangi bana wachak ngamba mangwe givi sem chons kejam nirdan jigbar nyarla mamtam berkin ngamba dam chanar kajig riri shundam perin gyuru dinab dakka kyang gyarton shia chag gi gzig nambar natsu jinro namgi kamdan wangbo dan mubana tanni darar shiba yono sai nyambo dakar Laring Joe Hadam Mernam Kyola Taburgiva Yeno Maun Jikten Namse Lagam Riki Womo Ganjik Sanji Tambala Geva Jones Gibate Penik Chigdan Derchan Chigdan Shema Chigdan Chetik Chigzam Shiba Deang Kyotip Shenlopdan Nibala Tene Ganzak Tet of Jong Ganzak Tet of Jong Jean Kuber Shago, Tenerum Givlana may be Shanchibble, Shirmer Dober, Shago.
This is an explanation of the ornament of the Mahayana Sutras. And this is Life and Spirituality. It is a collection of teachings that His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche gave to his disciples. I believe it was in 2019 when I was posting on Weibo every day, I would share a teaching from our guru along with a photo of him. Some photos might have been repeated, but most of them featured different photos and different teachings from our guru. So that is what this book is about. Today we will continue with the Ksitigarbha Sutra. Tomorrow we will have our final lecture on the Ksitigarbha Sutra. So we will be finished tomorrow. Tomorrow I will complete the remaining part of the Ksitigarbha Sutra. On Thursday I will teach a short sutra that is highly regarded in the Theravada tradition. It is a very brief scripture called the Mangala Sutta. I will give a teaching on that. Generally, many monastics in the Theravada tradition would not clap like this. They would just sit there. Once at the World Youth Buddhist Symposium, people above were clapping, and I was clapping too. Then I looked beside me and saw a Mahatera sitting there without moving at all. I felt a bit embarrassed, so I quietly put my hands down and sat like that. That is for Thursday. On Friday, I plan to teach The Buddha Speaks of the Matanga Sutra, another very short scripture. I translated both of these scriptures into Tibetan last year, and while teaching them to everyone, I can proofread my Tibetan translations at the same time. That is the plan for this week. We will see about next week. Now let us continue with the Ksitigarbha Sutra. In the earlier part of the Ksitigarbha Sutra, there is a section in chapter 12 that I taught to you in prose form. Today I will take the teachings from that prose section and present them in verse form, as the Buddha once again expounds them through verses. Most of the content here is quite similar to what came before. Some parts differ from the earlier section, but basically they are the same. Here we will also provide a simple literal explanation for each verse. The first verse says, at that time the Buddha said, I observe Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, his inconceivable power of wisdom, power of great compassion, and spiritual power. His spiritual power can also be called the power of blessing. Regarding Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva's inconceivable power of blessing and spiritual might, if we were to speak of it for kalpas as numerous as the grains of sand in the Ganges River, we still could not describe it fully. Actually, phrases like grains of sand of the Ganges, hundreds, thousands, kotis, they all represent extremely large figurative numbers. They are not necessarily exact figures because no one has ever counted how many grains of sand there are in the Ganges River. Similarly, when we count kalpas, how many kalpas, no one has counted them either. But actually, this means an extremely long period of time. In the Chinese version, including in the Sutra of Great Liberation, when it mentions so many 100 million, such as 100 million, 1 billion, 10 billion, 100 billion, 1 trillion, the word for 100 million in Chinese in the Tibetan translation is rendered as 100,000, 200,000, or 10,000 times 100,000, using 100,000 as the unit. Actually, the great translators of the past had different translation methods. It might not be counting from 1 to 10 continuously like that. We would find it hard to believe that these were actual exact numbers. Actually, they represent extremely large quantities. In Indian tradition at that time, they had their own conventions. When it comes to numbers, they often used many analogies to illustrate them. Therefore, what this means is the Buddha said that Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva's merit, spiritual power, and wisdom, if we were to speak of them for an extremely long time, we still could not finish describing them. For anyone to see Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva's form, to hear his name or his mantra or the Ksitigarbha Sutra, and to gaze upon him reverently and make prostrations even for a very short time, in a single instant, in a moment, in one brief instant, to see, hear, perceive, or prostrate, the benefit he brings to humans and celestial beings is infinite and measureless. It is also mentioned here that this sutra was taught in the celestial realm, so it is primarily beneficial for celestial beings. For us human beings, it is also extremely beneficial. Therefore, even in a brief moment of seeing, hearing, or gazing reverently, the merit is extremely great. In this way, we should also recite the Ksitigarbha Sutra once every day. Of course, the best is to recite it every single day. If we really do not have that time, for instance, on Sundays, or when you are happy, when you are relaxed, when you have no troubles, when you have eaten something good, when you are warmly dressed, when your friends bring you less negative news, and so on, whenever you have some time, you can read the Ksitigarbha Sutra once or recite the name of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva at those times. In this way, the merit is infinite and boundless for you personally and for all sentient beings. Then it speaks about men or women, celestial beings, nagas, or spirits, who in this very life, after their ripened karmic results have been exhausted, originally these sentient beings, including celestial beings, nagas, yakshas, and so forth, the karma they created was extremely grave, and they would surely fall into the 3 lower realms of hell, hungry ghosts and animals. But because these sentient beings wholeheartedly, sincerely, and with utmost earnestness take refuge in Ksitigarbha, the great being, take refuge in, revere, and prostrate to Mahayana Bodhisattvas, their lifespan is actually prolonged and all their karmic obstacles can be purified. I forgot to tell the story earlier. Should I tell it now? The merit of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva is also extremely great. Making images of him brings tremendous benefit to family members as well. Long ago in the Tang dynasty, there was a person surnamed Zhu. She herself was an extremely devout Buddhist, but her parents had no faith and were unwilling to learn. Later, for the sake of her parents, she made a golden statue of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, about 1 meter tall. She often made offerings and prostrations to it. Although her parents had no faith in this statue brought great benefit to her parents. What benefit was that? Once her father had already left the house and her mother was alone at home. That night, there happened to be a thief who came intending to steal things from their house. When this thief looked into the house, he saw a monk sitting there. He was startled and left. After leaving, perhaps he was a neighbor or something, I do not know. The next day he disguised himself as someone else, changed out of his thief clothes and went in. When he went in and looked, there was actually just the old lady and the statue of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. There was no one else. Later he thought that the person he saw the night before must have been this Bodhisattva. He became frightened, and after becoming frightened, he confessed everything to her family. Moreover, he described the entire process in complete and meticulous detail. Afterwards, he also repented earnestly and deeply. This is how her mother received the blessing of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. Once, when her father was away from home, his enemy was waiting on the road intending to kill him. Just as that person drew his knife to strike him, at this critical hair-raising moment, a monk appeared wearing golden yellow robes. This monk was stabbed by the knife. That enemy stabbed 3 times with the knife, and finally this monk fell to the ground. The master ran back home in great panic. After running back, he felt that on one hand, the monk had lost his life for him, which made him very sad, but on the other hand, he himself had managed to escape alive. He went to the Bodhisattva and began to pray. When he entered the shrine room, what he saw was that on the head of the statue of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, there were marks from a knife. There were 3 knife marks, and upon closer inspection, it seemed that within the golden traces there were also fine marks, like traces of blood. After this, he knew that his calamity had actually been averted by Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. From that time on, he called his his wife and daughter, and the whole family began to make offerings and prostrations. They always had tremendous faith. After that, her father passed away at the age of 79. 35 days later, his daughter had a dream. She saw her father appearing extremely dignified, saying that he had been reborn in the celestial realm. Through the blessing and guidance of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, our whole family has obtained good rebirth. He said, in 13 more years, your mother will take rebirth. In 25 more years, you will take rebirth. In 28 more years, your husband will take rebirth. After he said this, the image of her father in the dream disappeared. Later, the time was indeed exactly as he had said. Later on, her mother and she manifested their passing at the actual time. The people in that area felt this was extremely rare, and they had great reverence for this statue of Ksitigarbha. Moreover, they also received various miraculous responses. Historically, this is a very famous image. So at that time, Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva also brought such benefit to her family. So sometimes we can understand it this way. Perhaps you yourselves may have faith in Buddhism, but your parents, your children, or your most cherished beloved may have no faith at all. It might be very difficult to help them in this lifetime. In such situations, for their sake, you can make a statue yourself or recite the Ksitigarbha Sutra or obtain some Buddhist scriptures and statues for them to worship. This will also be beneficial, directly or indirectly, in this life or in future lives. The merit and dependent arising of the three jewels is truly inconceivable, so we should sincerely pray and perform these meritorious deeds. With a pure mind, it is very meaningful. As I mentioned earlier, those whose previous negative karma was very heavy would have fallen into the lower realms. If they take refuge in Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, they will not fall into the lower realms. Moreover, all their karmic obstacles will be purified. Next, it speaks about, as we mentioned before, some people between the ages of 1 and 10 lose their parents, as well as relatives, friends, brothers and sisters, and so on. These are people they loved. After losing these beloved people, those who remain alive have no idea in which of the 6 realms their spirits reside. As for their brothers and sisters, or other relatives and friends, after they grow up, they do not know or recognize those who were lost. This can be understood in 2 ways. What it means is that some of us from a young age have been separated from our parents, relatives, and friends. After growing up, we have no idea in which of the 6 realms they are. Even if they are in the human realm, it is also possible that we have no way to recognize them since having been separated since childhood. In such situations, we can sculpt a statue of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva or paint an image of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva with an extremely devoted heart, gaze reverently, and make prostrations without ceasing. With great devotion, we begin to gaze reverently and prostrate, never letting go, praying very earnestly. Pray for 3 7-day periods while reciting the name of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva 10,000 times. Finally, the Bodhisattva will manifest his infinite forms, his emanations, his infinite body, and he will tell you about the relatives and friends you have lost. Sometimes we might have our children go missing. Some may have died and cannot be found. Some may be victims of child trafficking nowadays. Whenever you have lost your parents, relatives, or children in such situations, if you pray to Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, you will also have a very good outcome. Even if these relatives and friends of yours have fallen into the 3 lower realms, they will soon gain release. In a very short time, they will gain liberation. If you do not retreat from your initial resolve, if your initial faith in Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva do not retreat, your faith in the 3 jewels, your great compassion for sentient beings, if these virtuous minds do not decline, then in a very short time you will receive Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, placing his hand on your crown and receiving his holy prediction, his prophecy. We also spoke about this earlier. For those who have lost their parents or those who have lost their children, even if you do not find them in this life, through making offerings and prostrations to the image of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, you will also bring them peace and happiness. If there are people who wish to cultivate the Supreme Bodhi and who wish to leave behind the threefold world suffering, When I translated into Tibetan, I rendered it as, if someone wishes to cultivate the Supreme Bodhi with the aspiration to be free from the suffering of the three realms, then we must generate great compassion. Such a person should first gaze reverently upon and prostrate to the image of the great being. Most of us should be Mahayana Buddhists. On one hand, we wish to attain the supreme fruit of Buddhahood very much. On the other hand, we wish to be liberated from the cyclic existence of the three realms. We must first generate the supreme and sublime bodhicitta at the very beginning. First of all, you must gaze upon and prostrate to the image of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. For instance, if you wish to become a monastic, if you wish to generate Mahayana bodhicitta, for such vast aspirations to be fulfilled, you definitely need both strong inner motivation and external support. If there is no external support and you rely solely on your own strength in this current age of Dharma degeneration and turbulent times, when evil forces and demons are extremely powerful, it is very hard to say whether you alone can persevere. It is really difficult. Many of us have very good initial intentions. I will be a good monastic, keep pure precepts, and see it through from beginning to end. I will generate the supreme bodhicitta and not harm any sentient being. But throughout this process, you may experience storms and countless calamities. There are all kinds of twists and turns. Those who can truly see things through from beginning to end are very few and far between. They are not many at all. So those of you who wish to generate supreme bodhicitta, it is best for you to pray, whether to Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, Manjushri Bodhisattva, Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, or to sublime spiritual masters who are emanations of these great beings, as well as to the Dharma protectors who vowed in the past before Guru Padmasambhava and many great Mahasiddhas. If they come to assist you, then all of your aspirations should be fulfilled in this very lifetime, and even throughout all future lives, they should be fulfilled. So those who wish to study the Supreme Bodhi should first gaze upon and prostrate to the image of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. In this way, all your aspirations will be swiftly fulfilled. All of your vast aspirations and great vows will be accomplished in a very short time. This is very important. Each of us has different worldly wishes, but more importantly, especially as students of Mahayana Buddhism, we wish for early accomplishment when we look at sentient beings drowning in the ocean of suffering. How pitiful they are. They struggle every day with birth, old age, sickness, death, separation from loved ones. All kinds of suffering come one after another ceaselessly. At such times, if we do not have strong inner strength ourselves, it is like a mother without arms, whose child is being swept away by water. We feel, oh, how pitiful. Today, this sentient being is so pitifully sick. Today, this sentient being is so poor and suffering. Today, this sentient being is creating such terrible negative karma. We often watch helplessly as many sentient beings continue to descend lower and lower. But if we want to save them, we have the will, but not the strength. Our ability is limited, so we can only watch with sadness. If we truly want to fulfill our aspirations as quickly as possible, we should pray to Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. In this way, your great aspirations will be quickly accomplished. Moreover, there will be no karmic obstacles that can hinder you forever. We can say that the karma that obstructs you will be completely stopped in a very short time. It will not arise. This is very important. Otherwise, many sentient beings in this age of degeneration, indeed at first we all have enthusiasm. I must benefit sentient beings in the future. Especially when there are some virtuous teachers who are giving teachings, we all raise our hands enthusiastically. I will liberate sentient beings. I will truly benefit sentient beings. In the past, when we attended the World Youth Buddhist Symposium, many of them were young people full of enthusiasm. We can say it was like that. Sometimes they make aspirations very easily. I will do this and that in the future. We did not particularly teach Buddhist content directly, but we did teach some things. For example, in praise of dependent origination and 37 practices of a bodhisattva. When we taught these, many young people said, I will definitely liberate sentient beings in the future forever. I will always propagate the Dharma. But later, after some time passed, they began to sink again into the ocean of worldly suffering. Their original initial resolve, their original mind, has long been lost. They probably cannot even remember what they said back then. So this world is truly a world of turbidity and degeneration. The power of the ocean of suffering is also extremely strong. Even though we have a brief aspiration, it is very easily covered by dark clouds. After being covered, we ourselves do not know where we are sinking, in what kind of ocean of suffering we are sinking. Next it says, there are people who resolve to recite sutras. We spoke about this before as well. They also wish to guide sentient beings of the three realms to the other shore. Although they have made such an inconceivably vast aspiration, because of their karmic obstacles from past lives, what they read, they quickly forget and lose much. After they finish reading these sutras, they forget everything completely. Everything is lost. This is actually because of their own karma. Their karma manifests. Their karmic obstacles are heavy, and they cannot remember Mahayana teachings. If we make offerings to Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva with flowers, incense, clothing, food, and objects they enjoy, and also a cup of pure water, place it before the image of the Great Being after 1 day and night if we drink the water, and also resolve to abstain from the 5 pungent plants, alcohol, meat, sexual misconduct, and false speech, and also do not kill or harm sentient beings for 3 7-day periods, and also wholeheartedly meditate on this Great Being's name. In this way, in dreams, we can see Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva's infinite forms. Upon awakening, we receive his blessing. We, who were originally extremely dull-witted, will have become people with sharp faculties. Our faculties become very sharp. All of these sutra teachings, as long as they pass by our ears, as long as we hear them, we will never forget them throughout thousands of lives and 10,000s of lives. We will have extraordinarily strong memory. This is the inconceivable power of blessing and spiritual might of the Great Being. Such a person has obtained such wisdom. During 3 7-day periods in the Han tradition, there is often pratyutpana samadhi practice and also avatamsaka Zen retreats. Here it can also be done. Of course, regarding the methods and approaches like our Ksitigarbha Dharma assembly, it is only 7 days. During these 7 days, we use the method of the 5 offerings to pray, recite mantras, and recite his name. Or according to what is taught in the Ksitigarbha Sutra, place some water in the Ksitigarbha mandala every day. In the past, in Vajrayana mandalas, there is water blessed by mantras. Finally, on the day of receiving Siddhi, either the last day of 21 days or the last day of 7 days, we often say receiving Siddhi. Actually, in the Sutrayana tradition, it is quite similar to Vajrayana intensive practice. For example, in the Han tradition, people may do a 7-day retreat reciting Amitabha. I've heard that in the practice of Pratyutpana Samadhi, I have never participated myself. The practitioners keep reciting continuously without stopping. Even if they collapse, you must keep moving forward continuously. It is a particularly ascetic way of reciting the Buddha's names. So whether it is during our Ksitigarbha Dharma assembly or in our daily practice in the future, we can follow the method taught in the Ksitigarbha Sutra. We can also have everyone recite the name of Ksitigarbha for 7 days. Of course, in the Han region, the tradition of placing blessed water may not be particularly common. In the past, there were quite many people who recited the Ksitigarbha Sutra, but as for those who truly can practice in this way, whether there are any, I have never heard of any. Perhaps there are some. It speaks about reciting the Ksitigarbha Sutra or hearing the name of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. As we said before, for example, sentient beings who are extremely poor. Of course, sentient beings' fortunes truly differ. As I said the other day, if sentient beings have even a little fortune in this life, they should definitely use part of it for merit. Before they leave this world, they should do it. Otherwise, most people who have great fortune are particularly stingy. But our own lifespan can also be measured. How long can you live in this world? You can estimate this yourself. When you pass away, when you leave, who will receive all of your possessions? This should also be clear. So while we are still alive, of course, we need to use part of our resources for living. We cannot give away everything, including our food and clothing, leaving ourselves with nothing. That might not be right. But I think for those whose fortune is not particularly great, although they are very devout, it is acceptable for them to keep a little more for themselves. Those who have greater fortune should use it to accumulate more merit. Otherwise, our lifespan is very short. Worldly people have no concept of impermanence at all. They think they can live for 1,000 years or 10,000 years. They have no such awareness of impermanence at all. My practice in other aspects may be lacking, but when it comes to the contemplation of impermanence, I should be fairly strong. Whether I see particularly wealthy people, those in high positions, or those with handsome appearances, or anyone whom worldly people especially admire, my first thought is, oh, it is impermanent. It definitely will not last for a very long time. When others praise someone, for example, some such and such newly appointed president of a country, I think, well, oh, what has risen will fall. What is so special about that? If someone is particularly wealthy, what has been accumulated will eventually be exhausted. What is so special? And so on. This concept of impermanence, I should have had it since I was young, especially from around the age of 23. After truly receiving Buddhist education, it has always been innate, not something I deliberately cultivated. it. It is not something I think about deliberately. Wherever I go, throughout spring, summer, autumn, and winter, in a car, while eating, I should have quite strong concept of impermanence in many aspects. But this concept of impermanence has not affected my enthusiasm and work. I should also cherish and seize opportunities. I feel it is very impermanent, whatever I do. Some people, when they contemplate impermanence, tend to become lazy and negative, falling into that kind of mindset. But I don't have such issues. Although I clearly understand that everything in this world is ultimately nothing more than a dream, with nothing truly worth clinging to, as long as we are still within that dream, we should still try our best to accumulate merit. In this regard, I haven't encountered any such issues. Contemplating impermanence has never caused me to lose faith. I do not feel particularly tired or lazy, as if I'm unwilling to do anything. It seems I don't really have that issue. But indeed, we can also see many people tend to have that issue. Whether it is sentient beings' lives or their wealth, many things are just like this. Especially when seeing some poverty, I think it must be due to stinginess in their past lives or to having taken others' wealth in previous lifetimes. Wealthy people may also not remain wealthy for very long. But in any case, in this world, what is most difficult for everyone to accept? One is poverty and also frequently getting sick illness. And also household misfortune and decline. In the family, whether it is bad feng shui or family members whose ages are incompatible, in any case, many inauspicious things tend to happen frequently. In some families, many unlucky things occur repeatedly. All of these continue to appear. In the worldly saying, misfortunes never come alone. Indeed, various disasters appear in families, such as family members or relatives passing away, or lovers separating and divorces. Now it is also like this abroad. I have heard that domestically there are also prenuptial property agreements. Before they get married, they sign an agreement. What kind of agreement? Specifying how much money you have, how much money I have. Once there is a divorce, how exactly the property belongs. This is still quite common, but in the Tibetan region it seems that no one signs such agreements. The other day I called my sister. I said, what are you doing? She said, one of our relatives got divorced and I'm going to bring back the yaks I had given them. I said, did you not send yaks there last year? How come you are herding them back now? It has not even been a year and they got divorced. Generally in Tibetan pastoral areas, when getting married, this family contributes some yaks. For example, more than 10 head, 35 head, that family gives some yaks. All are put together. When divorcing, each takes back their own yaks. Perhaps many of you do not have this concept, right? Herders' divorces are the same. In the past, there were black tents. Generally, when divorcing, they divide it in the middle. One side belongs to the woman, the other to the man. Nowadays, they count the tent as one item and draw lots. Another item equivalent to the tent is placed here. If the tent is torn apart in the middle, both people can't use it. So now they thought of a method. One person uses the tent, and the other uses something else, either yaks or coral. If there is coral or similar jewels, they are all acceptable. In this way, it is quite simple. Nowadays, many people use white tents. I asked my sister, I heard they set up white tents. Is that right? She said, yes, the white tent went to the woman. As for them, it truly is like a game. It is quite good. Sometimes listening to these things is also a very good aid to practice, because in less than a year, all the yaks were gathered together. After a period of time, each one's yaks separated very clearly, your yaks, my yaks, and then they take them back. So these worldly flash divorces are also particularly impermanent. For worldly people, as I said the other day, family happiness and harmony is very important for a family. Divorce, bankruptcy, or layoffs, these are also very painful for worldly people. They have to face a whole new life and may also have to deal with various public opinions. They bear a lot of pressure. For example, when someone leaves or in similar situations, everyone may have to face social criticism. Of course, regarding such criticism, worldly people may also be quick to pass the blame. In recent years, what we've often heard is passing the blame. I think not only do countries pass the blame to each other, even some of our volunteers, for example, if they are dismissed, they also pass the blame. Originally, it is their own matter, but then they say it's because someone reported on them, whether it's a tulku, a guru, or an abbot. When all the misfortunes in the world fall upon themselves, it is still uncomfortable and painful. At such times, for everyone, if they do not have wisdom or realization, it is also something very difficult to face. So here it refers to family members and also, in dreams, frequently experiencing nightmares and suffering from insomnia. Now, there are particularly many people experiencing insomnia. Perhaps it's due to pressure, worry, or tension. There are various situations. In the past, although their economic conditions were not very good, people slept very well. It was quite good. Nowadays, if someone asks, "Did you sleep well?" and you answer, "Yes, I slept well," people say, "Wow, you're so fortunate." Actually, sleeping well should not be considered as fortunate. We should be able to sleep. But indeed, perhaps it's due to the food we eat, or maybe our nerves are too tense, or perhaps it is because of the life pressure or many other situations. So being unable to sleep is also a kind of suffering. If we pray to Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, then we would not need to take sleeping pills. When seekers go against their wishes, they experience the suffering of not obtaining what they seek. Their own wishes cannot be fulfilled. That is to say, what you seek cannot be as you wish. Your wishes and what you obtain ultimately go in opposite directions. If we wholeheartedly gaze upon and prostrate to Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, then all evil things will be completely eliminated. Also in dreams we will obtain everything peaceful and joyful. Clothing and food will also be abundant. All spirits and ghosts will also frequently protect you. Indeed, we still need protection like that from Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. If there are protective deities, at least we will have relatively smooth lives in this world. Not everything will be out of reach or beyond our wishes. Some people, we can say, are unlucky throughout their entire lives. Everything seems to go wrong for them, and their health is poor. Others constantly discriminate against them, and their financial situation is bad. Relationships with friends and those around them are also not good. Their mindset is troubled, and their practice keeps deteriorating. It seems the whole world is gray and gloomy. They may think about suicide, but they still can't bring themselves to actually do it. Everything seems to have reached a dead end to the point of desperation. They do not know how to go on. There are also many people like this. At such times, if one truly has some practice and understands certain Buddhist principles, and if these really sink into the mind, it becomes extremely important. If you do not have devout faith and have not studied with dedication, then Buddhism may not easily take root in your mind, and its realization will be difficult to attain. If, in the process of studying, either rely on this kind of devout faith to receive the blessing and protection of the Buddha, or you use particularly superior wisdom to truly understand the truth and reality of Buddhism, then I believe this will be very meaningful. In the past, many people in the West, including some scholars and religious people, were particularly arrogant. They looked down on Eastern religions entirely because they felt that many scientists came from the West. Moreover, for a period of time, Western countries had relatively better economies. If they had not experienced several economic crises, they were still okay. In general, once people gain a bit of wisdom and some wealth, they tend to become arrogant. But later, some of them faced economic crises and some experienced spiritual crises. At that time, many of them went to Nepal, the Tibetan region, and India, and from the Eastern Buddhist culture, they gained an abundance of spiritual wealth. At that time, the arrogance in their hearts gradually collapsed. They genuinely felt that within Eastern Buddhist thought they had found their spiritual nourishment, because in the world that many things, whether wealth, fame, or technology, everything that should be there was already there, yet they still could not resolve their real-life problems and inner struggles. At that time, they never expected that within Eastern thought, there truly existed teachings beneficial to life, which is practice instructions they had now obtained. From that point onward, many teachings of our great Tibetan Buddhist masters, including some Dzogchen practices, they could particularly accept. I have met some Western senior professors. They often say this: in the 70s and 80s of last century, we were very arrogant. Because after World War II, especially countries like the United States, they felt that in all aspects of the world they were at the top level, at the cutting edge. But later it seemed that when they encountered various spiritually setbacks in life, they were all particularly at a dead end. Finally, indeed, some Eastern practices saved them, especially at that time some great masters from our region, which is including previous generation great masters. Actually, they were gurus with very powerful blessings who could bring peace to the minds of thousands and thousands of people and tame them. At that time, there was a group of great Tibetan Buddhist masters who went to the West. Indeed, they were not just remarkable in reputation, but they actually could truly tame the minds of many sentient beings. So, in certain aspects, those great masters had dispelled their doubts and helped them gain wisdom and peace. This is very important. So for all of you here, sometimes you should consider the afflictions of different sentient beings, their doubts and wrong views, in these aspects to think about how to give them teachings that are the right medicine for their illness. we should also consider these aspects. Now, some of our individual students and Dharma friends, they desperately want to practice more. What should I do? My afflictions are very heavy. What should I do? I am in so much pain. They keep struggling like this and only think of themselves. Of course, if you have not escaped from the dreamlike afflictions, if you have not liberated yourself, rescuing sentient beings is difficult. But when your own mentality is slightly peaceful, we must think of some methods to helping others. Especially our current people, they particularly believe in so-called science. So our Buddhists, whether lay practitioners or monastics, regarding the combination of science and Buddhism, of course, if we were to research all of science, our short lifespan cannot do it. But regarding questions about the mind, questions about practice, and questions about previous and future lives, major issues like these, we should understand what scientists say and how Buddhism explains them. It is very necessary to research these aspects. If we do not research, it seems like some individual teachers in schools now, some individuals, outwardly, they seem to present very reasonable theories. But actually, some of their so-called science does not have particularly special solutions regarding to the human mind. Indeed, up to now, science is a complete blank in this area. Most scientists, as everyone knows, including our mainstream thought, whether materialism or Western scientists, they all believe that our mind is produced by the brain, produced by matter. What is matter? It is produced by the brain. How is it produced by the brain? But how the brain produces mind, for any scientist, still has not discovered how it is produced here and the manner in which it is produced. If it is to be produced according to Buddhist logic, first you must recognize the seed, then from the seed its fruit is produced. The relationship between cause and effect, you must definitely establish a causal relationship between the two. If you do not understand this relationship, then there is no way to establish the causal connection between them. Now, many of them think it is produced by matter. As for matter, if the mind arises from the brain, when we truly examine this, we often encounter certain questions, especially perhaps in the future. It may be necessary to discuss this with scientists who study neuroscience. It is still necessary to explore this with them. Actually, many Western great masters have discussed this aspect many times. After discussing many times, many scholars of brain science and neuroscience, they finally have to acknowledge that Buddhist teachings are meaningful. Why do they say this? Why do they say our mind is all produced from the brain? Now, for science, as everyone knows, our brain has many nerves, whether it is the cerebrum or the cerebellum. There are many nerves. There are thousands and thousands. We have also visited some science laboratories. There are so many, hundreds of millions of neural pathways inside of brain, extremely many. But this is not rare. This is also mentioned in Buddhist tantras, just in our human body, because in our Sutrayana, it seems there is no such observation or analysis of the so-called brain. Basically, there is none of analysis in Abhidharma as well. But in Vajrayana Tantras, it is mentioned. For example, regarding our human nerves, they speak of channels. When speaking of channels, there are 72,000 channels. Also, there are 500 branch channels in our brain. In the Tantras, especially in Kriya Tantra and Charya Tantra, there is much about this knowledge. These channels actually play a role in each perception. Now, for example, our brain scientists, they think our genes are regulated here. Such and such areas regulate genes. Originally, the brain can be divided into many different regions. Within these regions, some control our memory, some control our stress, some are related to conceptual consciousness, some to non-conceptual consciousness. In any case, there are many such functions within the brain. But can this explain that consciousness is produced depending on these? Actually, it cannot. According to Buddhist teachings, the Tantras also say these sense consciousnesses rely on the brain. The brain, it seems in the Tantras, it is called the essence of mind. By relying on the brain, we can know objects. But being able to know objects does not actually mean it produces our mind from within. It is not that the brain produces mind. So we probably also know that scientists all over the world now feel that brain science is the most complex. Up to now, many of them have not figured it out clearly. What exactly is it like if we have what is taught in Buddhism, mental consciousness, all-ground consciousness, the 5 sense consciousnesses? Does the brain have these? Indeed, it controls our entire nervous system and entire body. It is equivalent to functioning like a remote control. Such channels should exist. This is taught in the Tantras. Our brain nerves have different functions, but they exert different effects on our mind. It is not necessarily produced from within. We should be able to say this, because scientists think that when any region of our brain suffers damage, afterwards consciousness is already gone. Afterwards, bodily sensation is gone. Afterwards, sensation in the feet is gone. If that part of the brain is damaged, sensation is gone. This can demonstrate that our mind is produced from the brain. They think this way. Actually, this cannot demonstrate it. It can only demonstrate that the mind relies on the brain as a support to function. For example, if our leg is broken, can we say that the leg is broken because the mind is the leg and the leg is the mind? Or if our hand is broken, does it mean the mind has stopped functioning? Or if our ear is damaged, can we say the mind is produced by the ear? The same reasoning. If a certain region of the brain is damaged, then the knowledge of things in that particular aspect is lost. You can only say that it relies on this basis, and that knowledge in that aspect arises. You cannot say it is produced by it. The phenomenon of reliance and the phenomenon of production are completely different. So we may need to research this in the future. If we research it, actually many great masters in the past have also researched it. For example, I still remember there is a Khenpo Wangchuk. Khenpo Wangchuk is now in the United States in New York. He teaches at Columbia University and seems to have taught there for more than 10 years. Before, I had also invited him, hoping he would help translate some treasuries into English. But due to various reasons, neither he nor I had the conditions to do it. He once went to Germany with His Holiness the Dalai Lama for a dialogue on science and Buddhism. At that time, they invited many brain scientists, including neuroscientists. Probably hundreds or thousands of people participated. Then the scientists mainly proposed their views, and the Buddhist side refuted them. At that time, Khenpo Wangchuk himself participated, and later he made a detailed record. Later I read it too. It was written in Tibetan. At that time, I specifically asked the translator to translate it. She translated and gave me a brief account. Indeed, in the end, those scientists all made self-reflection. They said, we have not researched carefully indeed. Actually, the brain does not necessarily produce mind. At that time, many scientists in the end had learned a great deal, and I think the debates and discussions at that time were indeed very beneficial to them. So nowadays, whether it is Western science or the science that we Chinese people have learned, indeed they cannot thoroughly research the ultimate nature of life. If we want to research the ultimate nature of life, we actually need to rely on our mind, the path of inner practice. If we understand this path, then we can truly understand the ultimate nature of the mind itself. We cannot understand it externally. Only by looking inward can we understand. So we say that many worldly people nowadays are in great need of some spiritual nourishment. Although our material wealth in this world has indeed reached an unprecedented level of abundance, and even though it has already reached this level, people's spiritual level, their hearts, and their ability to withstand blows are particularly poor. When encountering a little hardship, we feel we cannot bear it anymore and want to commit suicide. Perhaps it is just such a small matter, but already we have no way to cope with it at all. So whether it is in the East or the West, I think we should cherish the opportunity while we are alive to study the Buddhist teachings well. One aspect is to be able to help ourselves. On another aspect, we can also help those around us, especially regarding sentient beings' afflictions. Sometimes they endure so much suffering, some sentient beings genuinely cannot bear it. But if you can truly give them some guidance, point them in the right direction, they can turn a corner and their whole life changes. So I believe that in the future, the need for people who study Buddhism will definitely continue to grow. Actually, those of you present and our students can do a lot of meaningful work in worldly situations. Whether it is dealing with people around us or encountering some difficult situations after we study Buddhism, we should, in terms of insight and in terms of wisdom and compassion, have far greater ability than ordinary people. These abilities are actually needed by many people. Because society nowadays is very impetuous. In such an impetuous society, many people only care about money, but when they truly obtain it, many people end up in prisons. When they do not obtain money, they end up in hospitals. Perhaps it is somewhat like this. So I hope all of you should study Buddhism well. Do not just think about yourselves. Actually, if we only think about ourselves and are always focused on ourselves, actually some sentient beings are like this. After learning Buddhism for many years, they always think about what can help themselves, what they should do to themselves, but they always lack the greater picture, the greater vision. They have never thought, actually in my surroundings, there are thousands and thousands of sentient beings waiting for me to guide them, waiting for me to help. So truly, while we are not preoccupied with self-interest, but are focused on the interests of others, actually our own interests will naturally be fulfilled. This is a truth of life. We always think about ourselves. Perhaps in the end, we truly might lose everything completely. Constantly thinking of oneself might lead to truly obtaining nothing at all. But if you do not care too much about yourself and always selflessly dedicate yourself to benefiting others, your own benefit will naturally be fulfilled. This is a very important principle. So all of you present, especially, even though our cultivation now is not very high, the bodhicitta we have generated is not very strong. After studying Buddhism for a little while, we must exert ourselves in this aspect to help those sentient beings in need. This is a tradition we have always maintained. From my own perspective as well, since entering the monastic community, at that time I was in the Sakya tradition. When I was a little monk, I especially liked to help other people. Whatever I could do, any help I could give them, I particularly liked to do it. After going to His Holiness Jigme Pansok Rinpoche, His Holiness Jigme Pansok often said that if you want to truly be a Buddhist, you must benefit sentient beings. That is, in your entire life, whatever you have learned, whether it is reciting mantras or prostrating or whatever, you should dedicate all of it to benefiting sentient beings. This teaching of His Holiness Jigme Pansok, in a certain sense, has been deeply engraved in my mind. So until now, in my mind, I always think about benefiting sentient beings in different ways. Whether spreading the Dharma or conducting rituals or whatever else, whenever there is an opportunity to help sentient beings, I always hold this in my heart. So you all should also be like this. All right, let us stop here for today. We will dedicate the merit. May the merit of explaining and listening to this Dharma be dedicated to all sentient beings throughout space. May all sentient beings be established in the state of omniscience. May the three jewels be the supporting condition. May all sentient beings be established in the state of omniscience. For the sake of all mother sentient beings, may I swiftly attain the state of omniscience. May all sentient beings throughout space, without exception, be established in the supreme state of Buddhahood. May the precious and supreme bodhicitta arise where it has not yet arisen. Where it has arisen, may it not decline, but ever increase, grow, and flourish.
Bandhangara Padmasada Bandhangara Padmasada